Moving on, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke on Monday to the leaders of France, Germany, Italy and the UK to discuss de-escalating tensions in West Asia and a ceasefire in Gaza. Leaders of all 5 countries said that they endorsed a call from the US, Qatar and Egypt for renewal of talks for concluding a Gaza ceasefire deal as soon as possible. The leaders also called on Iran to stand down its ongoing threats of a military attack on Israel. However, Iran Foreign Ministry has dismissed European nations' calls for restraint. DD India's Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
Iran is blaming Israel for the assassination of the head of Hamas's Politburo, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, despite no admission of guilt by the Israeli government. So certainly an extremely tense time here in the region. This is, of course, why the United States has been moving more military hardware to the area. And we do have a little more from the Foreign Ministry spokesperson saying that Tehran is determined to deter Israel, calling on Paris, London and Berlin to once and for all stand up against the war in Gaza and, quote, the warmongering of Israel. And this comes amid other reports in Hebrew media coming out just a few hours ago that Israel will actually strike Iran even if it strikes Israel and causes no civilian casualties. So certainly a very worrying time in the Middle East.
Keir Starmer spoke with Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian on Monday as part of de-escalation efforts to ease tensions in West Asia. Pictures shared online by 10 Downing Street showed Starmer on the phone with a caption saying that he was talking to Pezeshkian. Starmer asked Pezeshkian to refrain from attacking Israel and saying that war was not in anyone's interest. Right, joining me is Sarah Coates, who is in Tel Aviv. Sarah, Iran dismisses European calls for restraint. What does it mean for the region and the world at large?
Well, it certainly is a region on edge, and this is one of the reasons that the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is reportedly making yet another visit to the Middle East to really try and diffuse these tensions that are currently happening. Now, we do understand he might be stopping in Egypt, also Qatar, here in Israel, and potentially Iran, but that all really hinges on whether it will or has attacked Israel by that stage. Now, Reuters is now reporting, citing a number of senior Iranian officials, as saying that only a ceasefire in Gaza can delay Iran's attack on Israel. So this really highlights the urgency of the visit by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken ahead of this summit happening Thursday to really try and get this ceasefire over the line after months and months of negotiations. It's still unclear as to whether Hamas will actually send a delegation to these talks, but from what we understand, Egypt is really piling the pressure on Hamas to once again try and get this deal done.
Sarah, it's interesting you should speak about a linkage between a Gaza ceasefire and Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel. So I have to ask you this. The leaders of France, Germany, Italy and the UK have all endorsed a call from the US, Qatar and Egypt to clinch a Gaza ceasefire deal as soon as possible. But as someone who's been covering developments from Israel for many months now, do you think the parties to the dispute, Israel on the one hand and the Hamas on the other, are up for it?
Well, we really just need to wait until Thursday, but from what we've been seeing over these past few months, it doesn't seem very likely. We've been at this point many times where there's been a lot of optimism that a ceasefire and a hostage deal may be achieved, but then there are just too many differences between the positions of Israel and Hamas. Now, Hamas has been saying it wants to go back to an original framework, back to talks that were held 6 months ago, saying it doesn't want to actually enter into new negotiations, while on the Israeli side, the position of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, still remains unclear. And what we've got to remember here is the immense pressure that Netanyahu is under from his coalition, that he needs to keep him in power. Specifically, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister, he's once again threatening to walk away from the coalition, to see it collapse if Netanyahu agrees to a deal that would see a ceasefire in the Strip and these hostages released. But at the same time, Netanyahu is under immense international pressure and also domestic pressure on the Israeli street from the families of these hostages who've been in Gaza now for 10 months. So really, it all hinges on these talks on Thursday, and I don't think anyone can actually predict the outcome of these talks because, firstly, you have to get these two warring parties to the table.
Indeed. Sarah, thank you. Appreciate it. Sarah Coates reporting there from Tel Aviv.